Is DC getting ready to reboot the Rebirth universe? Let's take a look at the writing on the wall and see what might be in the future. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is a weekly one-shot where I'm going to be going over a specific comic book topic, so make sure to subscribe to get one of these every single week. The topic I want to talk about is DC Rebirth, as well as the reboots that are currently happening inside comic books. While Marvel's out loud and proud for their fresh start, and they're announcing these great mini-series, as well as these rejuvenations of previous story arcs and things like that, DC's Rebirth has been considerably more subtle when it comes to these things, but I think that they're headed down the same general direction. So when we talk about DC Rebirth, let's go back to June of 2016 when we're going to be relaunching this entire DC universe after the wave of the New 52. So we got Superman, we got Batman, we got brand new creative teams, and then the giant Rebirth one-shot, which is going to be taking everything into the future. So what we had at that point in time was approximately 32 different superhero titles that came out over the course of DC Rebirth for the first year with all these brand new creative teams. And out of those books, we only have 10 left that have continuously had the same writer and haven't even had the same artist. So that's 2/3, 66% of the population of DC Rebirth has either been changed drastically or relaunched, or will be relaunching or changing drastically within the next 2 months or so. Of course, when I say things like that, you're going to be like, what are you talking about? Of course these series have been continuously running, but the key is that we're talking about in their current iteration with their current creative teams, or at least with the same creative guidance. And that's something that's been changing since the beginning of DC's Rebirth. Not only that, but we also have cancellations of various titles that have happened. So you've got the dismissal of Superwoman, which was written by Phil Jimenez, and it was only written by Phil Jimenez for approximately the first 7 or 8 issues. So that went by the wayside. We've got Blue Beetle, which was also canceled. And then when the recent announcements that Supergirl was going to be ending at issue number 20 and Super Sons was going to be ending at issue number 16, that was just more writing on the wall, specifically about the transition for Brian Michael Bendis. So when is the last time you saw somebody take out an entire 2-page full spread for a writer coming over to some place? I can tell you when. It's probably Jack Kirby or something along those lines when they stole him from Marvel. But the real key to this is what it's going to impact when it comes to these particular titles. So when we're talking about Superman and the impact that Brian Michael Bendis is going to have on that, they're going to be rebooting and relaunching Superman with a brand new issue number 1 starting in the end of June, beginning of July. Same thing with Action Comics, and Brian Michael Bendis is going to be helming both of those, which is what caused the impact when it comes to Supergirl and Super Sons, because the creative juices for Superman are going to be kind of inside the reins of Brian Michael Bendis. Whether that's a good thing or not, that's really up for you to decide, but it is impacting things across the entirety of the line. This means that the combination of Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, who are writing Superman, and with the dismissal of Super Sons, Peter J. Tomasi just himself, are going to be open to writing new projects. While they have announced on Twitter that he's super excited about what he's going to be doing next, and there's some rumors kind of floating around, that still leaves that creative team out there and trying to do something else. But the creative teams from Superwoman and Supergirl aren't necessarily so lucky when it comes to that stuff. Also for cancellations, you have Batgirl and the Birds of Prey, which is going to be concluding its final arc, so that means that those books are going to be canceled. And then you've got Cyborg, which is kind of up in the air. So Semper Jr., who was writing Cyborg, he kind of concluded his story arc somewhere around the February time frame or the January time frame, but it was just resolicited in April and in May with Marv Wolfman on the title. So Cyborg is one of those books that it could have been canceled, might be canceled, and maybe they're just trying to, thrust a little bit of new life into it as they're releasing the Justice League Blu-ray that's going to be coming out in a few days. Of course, when you're talking about the transitions of creative teams, there's a lot more drastic measures that are going to be taken. So James Tynion IV, who wrote a fantastic run on Detective Comics, is going to be ending his run with Batman Eternal, which is going to be concluding in 981, which takes place in May, so that's in the future. We also have the aforementioned Superman and Action Comics, which Brian Michael Bendis is going to be taking over, and then you have Justice League. So while Justice League started out with Brian Hitch when we started off DC Rebirth, it transitioned over to a few different writers, ending with Christopher Priest before Scott Snyder is going to be taking over the title in that June-July time frame. When we talk about Snyder's take, it's going to be happening sometime after Justice League No Justice, which is a story that he teased in Batman Lost. So is this going to be a new number 1, or is it going to continue on with the current numbering scheme? That's something we're going to find out inside the June solicits, which are going to be coming out in the middle of this month, but it's a good bet that there's going to be some sort of specific change that's going to happen with this. Of course, the No Justice storyline also puts into question 3 other titles which could be possibly facing a complete shift in their creative direction, which would be Justice League of America, Teen Titans, and Titans, since they're all involved in No Justice as a storyline, and Scott Snyder has been saying that the shuffle in teams is one of the largest focuses of his particular event. And when we're talking about DC Rebirth and how DC Rebirth is slowly getting rebooted and removed, you've got the delays that go on with Doomsday Clock, going from a monthly title to a once every 2 months title, and then you've got the resurgence of Dark Knight's Metal, which started in June of 2017. So despite delays and the inclusion of all these other specific titles that go along with Dark Knight's Metal, DC's New Age of Heroes is directly impacted by that. So all the titles are now launching with Dark Knight's Metal as their focus, or they're getting rebooted, rejuvenated inside DC's No Justice, or they're being taken over by a brand new creator from outside like Brian Michael Bendis. And that's where we leave pretty much everything as far as Rebirth is concerned, because every single title other than possibly 10 has had major creative changes when it comes to these books. Even though Green Arrow's continued on for about 39 issues with Ben Percy at the helm, it is getting a brand new writing team from Kelly and Lanzig, who are going to be taking over the book starting in May. Harley Quinn, which was absent from the solicits in May 2018, had Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor step down, and then Frank Thierry take over a while ago. So there's a lot of things that are really going on as far as the shuffling of creative teams inside DC, trying to refresh these things. Tim Seeley took over on Green Lanterns, while Sam Humphries and Ben Percy have taken over on Nightwing. So there's a lot of different stuff that's going on with that, leaving, like I said, only about 10 books that have had consistent creative teams the entire time that DC Rebirth's been going on. You've got Batman, which has got Tom King on there, and he's on issue 47 as of May, and he's going to be through issue 50 because that's when the wedding is going to be happening between Batman and Selina Kyle. You have The Flash, which is written by Joshua Williamson and has been continuously, and that's going to be kind of continuing on past issue number 47 because we have The Flash Wars, which is coming out. That's the title that he's really coming out, the storyline that he really wants to focus on, and one that was a big focus at New York Comic-Con for him. You have Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, which has been written by Robert Venditti for the last 45 issues continuously, that doesn't look to be slowing down anytime soon. The same can be said for Suicide Squad and Rob Williams, who's on issue number 42 as of May of 2018, and he's going to be continuing to kind of take that on as well. However, once you get past those core books, the timing gets a lot shorter as far as continuous creative teams on a particular title. Dan Abnett's Aquaman has been going strong, but it's only on issue 36 because they had to step back to monthly production in order to maintain consistency within the story and the creative team. Then, of course, you've also got books like Deathstroke, written by Christopher Priest, which is continuing on into the 30s as far as its issues are concerned. We've got New Superman, which is continuing a strong run, even though they rebranded it New Superman and the Justice League of China. You've also got a continuing storyline inside Red Hood and the Outlaws, written by Scott Lobdell. You've got Batgirl, which is continuing on from Hope Larson, and then Batman Beyond, written by Dan Jurgens. So if we're talking about the reboots and things like that, while Marvel has been very loud, very out there, very open about what their intentions are as far as their titles and the way that they're going to be forming their stories going forward, DC has been much more subtle when it comes to changing their creative teams, but it still has resulted in a more than 60% change in people that have been working on these particular books since the launch of DC Rebirth. So the question that I'm posing to you guys, does Rebirth still matter? A lot of the storylines that I've been reading inside DC, and I've been reading a lot of them, have shifted away from any kind of focus on the changes of DC's Rebirth landscape. So you've got great titles like Superman Reborn that was part of a crossover from Action Comics and Superman, but it's not necessarily focusing on anything. Titans has stopped insinuating all these different crossover pieces. There's small little pieces here and there. However, the influence of DC's Dark Knight's Metal, the influence of Brian Michael Bendis coming over as a creator, and the delays in Doomsday Clock have me really questioning what the importance of DC Rebirth really is inside the DC continuity. But I want to know what you guys think too, so hit me up in the comments down below so we can start that conversation and chat about what DC has in store for the future. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.